Hey guys, how's it going? I know I haven't done a hardware video in quite some time, so today we're going to be doing the ASUS RTX 3060 Ti KO Overclocked Edition video card that I got in the Newegg shuffle here recently. So we're going to unbox that, and we're going to go ahead and install it in my gaming system with the 11900K, and we're going to run some tests on it, and I'll do things like look at how the lighting on it works, because it works with ASUS Aura Sync and that sort of thing. So give me a second here, we'll get into this box and see how things are going. Stick around.
If you haven't already done so, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Thanks.
Alright, so like I said, I got this in the Newegg shuffle here the other day. I've been meaning to get around to doing an opening box video on it, and unfortunately I've really just A, I've been really tired lately, and B, just haven't felt up to screwing with it. I got to take apart some of my systems and clean them anyway though, so this is a good excuse to get the kingpin out and give it a good cleaning and kind of clean up that system. A lot of that stuff's been running pretty consistently for a while, and it's getting pretty dusty, and you know, I got a cat in here, so there's cat hair getting into things, so it's a good time to clean it apart, take it apart and clean it. But anyways, you know, I haven't done a hardware review video in a while, because as you guys of course are well aware that it's difficult to get a hold of any hardware right now. So luckily we got this, and then coming up I'll be doing a gaming PC build for one of my friends who the other day came over, and we ordered a bunch of parts for him, and he's got a RTX 2070 coming from another friend of his that's donating it to him, so he'll at least have a video card. It won't be the most modern video card, but we're going to be doing a R7 8700X you know, AMD build for him, so that'll be fun. But without further ado, enough jaw jacking from me. Let's get this thing opened up here and see what comes in the box. So we've got manuals, we've got, you know, thank you for buying an ASUS product kind of card. Tarjeta Graphica. Speed setup, yes. Now this comes with like a trading card or something. That's kind of funny. Like they rate the overclocking and heat dissipation of the product in this little gaming card that they've supplied. That's funny. But anyways, so this is actually for a friend of mine at work, and he and I and then one other guy were trying to help him get a card for a while using the Newegg shuffle. We'd all entered it every day, and so I ordered it for him. He's going to reimburse me for it on Monday, and so this isn't really for me, and I won't be keeping it, so we'll be doing whatever we can with it today, and then you know, any further testing I won't really be able to perform. So hopefully this will be a sufficient review. If there's any questions, I can, you know, try to look up the answer if it's something I can find online. But as far as running any additional gaming tests going forward, this is about the limit of what I'm going to be able to do, is what we can test today. This is some thick plastic they've got on here. This is a pretty beastly card. We already actually looked at it at the office briefly, because he wanted to make sure it was something he was going to want and thought he could, you know, make sure it would fit in his system and all that kind of stuff. So we actually did open the box already and look at it, but we didn't take it out too much. But they're, I mean, you've got all kinds of connectivity on this thing. A very beefy card for a 3060 Ti. Like the stock editions are nowhere near this size. This thing is a monster, physically speaking. Nice big cooling fans, feels sturdy. Silent moving fans. They're nice and fluid. Just making sure that they're not having any kind of sticking or binding. They got like a little tiger icon on them. I guess that's their thing that they're doing for their KO edition or whatever. These companies are always putting silly little stuff like that on their cards. But let me close this up here, and we'll get all this plastic off here, and we'll have a look at it. Yeah, see, they put the same thing on the box there. Got plastic all over this thing. Oh, I'm done. There we go. And we'll try to get some more of this off here. Give me 1 second here, and we'll get this off here. Alright, so I've got all the plastic removed, and like I say, it's a very nice sized card. It's a 2.7 physical slots that this is going to take up in your system, so it's like, make sure you've got enough space, and that, I mean, that's like depth, so you're talking about if you have any other additional cards, like a capture card or a sound card or something installed, just make sure you have enough room that this isn't going to block anything, and, you know, it shouldn't, you know, be an impediment for anything as far as, like SATA ports or anything, but just keep in mind of how big the card is. It's physically pretty long, so again, maybe watch and make sure that you have a good sized system, because sometimes cards will be, you know, a little bit long and they might be bumping into the front like a hard drive cage or something, so just keep that in mind. It only takes a single 8-pin PCI Express power connection. The total draw power for this card is supposed to be 200 watts. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct or not, because I thought that that was what the stock power requirement was for a 3060 Ti, but everything I see on their site and everywhere else still says it's 200 watts, which, being that this is an overclockable card, I kind of find that questionable, but that's what they say. So they've got performance mode and quiet mode BIOS switch, so in the performance mode the fans will kick up more, and in the quiet mode they're supposed to run at a quieter level, but of course the card will get hotter, so your choice as to whether you want more noise or more cooling performance there. We've got a nice array of I/O on the back panel here, so we've got this little thing fell off when I was pulling off the plastic, but we've got two HDMIs on here, which is a little bit different than most cards. So we've got HDMI. Most cards these days come with 3 display ports and a single HDMI. This has got 3 display ports and 2 HDMI, so that's kind of a nice extra little connectivity. I don't really know why you would be hooking up to 5 different displays, but I guess if you really needed to, you'd be able to do it with this card. It says it's a stainless steel 304, so that's a little bit different. Got a nice big back plate on the card, as you can see, to help keep it cool, so that's a nice added little feature, little bonus. I don't see any other real connectivity anywhere on the card for hooking up fans directly to it or anything. I know that these can light up. The KO Win little emblems there can be lit up and then controlled using the ASUS RTX software, so we'll have that option. But the specifications are 4,864 CUDA cores. There's 152 tensor cores for doing things like DLSS. You know, the tensor cores are for handling AI, deep learning. And there's 38 RT cores for ray tracing. It has 8 gigs of GDDR6. It's funny, I actually found some sites that were saying it was GDDR6X, which according to the ASUS manufacturer site, it is just GDDR6. But like I looked at the B&H photo website, which is a site that sells electronics and whatnot, and they claimed it was 6X on their site. So some confusion apparently from some retailers. But that's 8 gigs of GDDR6 standard 6 on a 256-bit memory interface. The core clock of the card it has a boost clock of 1785 megahertz, but I also found other indications that it was 1755 megahertz. So I guess we're going to have to test it and see what it does when we get it into Windows, because again, it's for some reason it seems like there's disparate information about this card even on like the manufacturer's site. And the memory clock is 1750 hertz, it claims. And that should be just about it for the basic specifications of the card. So like I say, you only need a single 8-pin PCI Express power connection, got lots of I/O, nice big card, 2.7 slots, nice back plate, big beefy fan and cooling system, and you have some lighting options with the KOs on here. And I think some of this, like this ASUS area might light up, but we'll have to find out when we get it in the system. But with that said, next step will be a little magic trick here, alakazam, and it should appear in my computer. Okay, so we've got the card installed in the i9 11900K system. This is the Z590 chipset. We've got an ASUS motherboard in here, and so we should be able to use the AuraSync software to synchronize the card with the board. I took some things out, like I have this extra cooling fan array here that I use on my Kingpin that I'm not using here because we want to see what the card actually runs at normally, since that'll be more useful to you guys than trying to have an extra fan cooler on it that'll give us different temperature results. So took that out of the way, but I can't really uninstall it without doing a bunch of unwiring in the back. I don't want to screw with that, so whatever. And we got extra power supply connections laying around because the Kingpin takes 3 and this only takes 1, so we got it wired up. And another thing, of course, is the top of the case. That's where I have my radiator at from the Kingpin. No radiator for this, so there won't be any fans on the top, but I have exhaust in the back. I have plenty of intake, and I have some fans on the bottom of the case as well for extra air pulling up from below. So there's plenty of intake, plenty of exhaust. It's just not quite the same as it would be if I were using, normally I'd have some fans at the top, but again, this is just extra shenanigans at this point. But anyways, this should give us a fairly accurate representation of how well the card can run. What I'm going to do next is go ahead and fire it up, and we're going to see if it works for starters, and then we're going to go ahead and try the ASUS Sync lighting profiles, and then we'll run some benchmarks. Alrighty, let's see if this thing will power up, and if so, if it's going to work. Hey. Looks like it's lit right up. So actually, yeah, there's quite a bit of internal lighting on the card. You can see the KO lighting is on, as I mentioned, and then on the side you can see here where it says ASUS is lit up. And really there's, well, I think lighting inside of the card is partly because the KOs are lit up and that light is installed in the fan shroud. So give me a second here, I'll see if I can get us a better angle on this and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. This is kind of a bad angle to work at over here, but anyways, okay. So you can see that there's a couple LEDs inside this thing, and so they're casting quite a bit of light out from inside of the card where that heatsink break is at. But the word ASUS lights up. There's no lighting on the back plate from what I can see, so most of the lighting is from the ASUS. GeForce RTX does not light up. And then we've got, oh, went too far, sorry, this camera controlling gimbal thing is a little bit complicated, but you can see the KO lit up on the bottom, and it kind of syncs with the the ROG Strix symbol I've got going on there and whatnot. So I guess next step what I'll do is I'll try to get Sync to detect this thing, and assuming that that works as we would want it to, we can try some different things like changing lighting patterns. So give me 1 minute and we'll play with some of that stuff. So I ran the Fire Strike test on 3D Mark, and we got a score of about 30,000, well, graphics score of about 30,000, but 25,836. But things I noticed, the temperature, I was running my overlay the whole time, so the temperature got to about 62 degrees, I think was the highest that it went on the GPU. And the GPU clock frequency, I don't know if they ever show that in this or not, but the maximum GPU clock, actually you can see like for a second there, it actually got to 1980 megahertz. The highest I had noticed was 1965, but it does look like for at least a moment there, it got to 1980 megahertz. So pretty good clock frequencies for an out-of-the-box experience. This has not been overclocked. I mean, it's factory overclocked, but I haven't done any additional increasing of clock frequencies, and it's still running pretty nicely given that. So that was 3D Mark Fire Strike. Next, I'll probably do something like Time Spy. So give me a second here, and we'll run that. Alright, so here's our Time Spy results. And the CPU, well, I'm not worried about the CPU. The GPU temperature got up to around 64 at the highest point. I think that if this thing was allowed to run for a while, like if you did like a Furmark benchmark or something, it might hit around 70 under like significant load, because it's pegging the GPU load was like damn near 100% the whole time, you can see on each test. And so it's not like it's sitting at like, 80% utilization or something. There's no bottleneck with this CPU, so it's getting pegged out the entire time, and the most it got to is, like I said, just shy of 64, but it's not really running long enough on these little benchmarks to really let it heat up. I think, like I say, if you ran it for an hour or two of intense gaming session where you were really using the GPU the whole time, then sure, you'd probably hit around 70 degrees. That's pretty good for an air cooler, actually, and it's pretty quiet. Like, I really can't even hear it right now. I opened up the door on the case, and really it's not noticeable from a few feet away, and if you have when you have the case shut, you can't hear it at all. Now I have other things going in here, like my AC kicks on and off, that kind of stuff, so that will sort of interfere with your ability to hear it. But just in general, it's the fans aren't really noticeable. GPU clock frequency that time. Where is the GPU clock frequency? Didn't quite go as high with that particular test. Like, so last time I got to 1980 megahertz. This time I got a little over 1900, but different tests are going to have a little bit different results, so whatever. Anyways, that's Time Spy. Next up we'll do Time Spy Extreme. Alright, Time Spy Extreme, our score is 5716. GPU load again, basically staying at 100% the whole time. The GPU max temperature hit again pretty much right at 64 degrees, but again, these tests aren't really running that long, so you can see that by the end of by the end of graphics test, the last graphics test, it hit 64, but then in the CPU test, of course, it drops off because it's just doing the CPU and not the GPU at that point. GPU clock frequency looks like it got close to 2000 again, around the 1965 point, so pretty good. And it's estimating performance for like games like Battlefield 5. It says about 110 frames per second, but just in general, seems to be doing a pretty good job. Like I said, the temperatures are not hitting too high, and getting good gaming performance. You could pretty much play anything at 1080p, pretty much anything at 1440p on this card, and even probably do some milder 4K gaming, or using DLSS. I'm sure you could game. More games are starting to support that. Like, for example, Red Dead Redemption 2 now has DLSS support, and so you could probably play Red Dead Redemption 2 in 4K on a card like this, as long as you did like a performance DLSS mode. So you definitely have some pretty good performance here. But next I'll do Port Royal, and then we'll do maybe Superposition. Alright, we got our Port Royal result of around 7,000. Seems like with my 3090, with like heavy overclocking, I was getting like maybe 14.5. So I mean, obviously, you can't really expect a $600 card to fight against like a $2,000 card, but this is doing more than adequate work. Let's see what our temperature was by the end of this. About 63. So consistently, like for all these benchmarks, it's hitting 63, 64, which is pretty much what you'd expect. The GPU just sits at pegged at 100% load, because the CPU is running at like 5.1 gigahertz the whole time. CPU. Does it say the CPU clock frequency? Yeah, CPU, like I say, is sitting around. Well, actually, the CPU jumped up to like 5.3 at points. So, yeah, like you're not getting a CPU bottleneck here. GPU clock 1900-ish. But kind of as expected, pretty consistent results out of this thing. Like I say, I think what I'll do next is go ahead and do superposition. That runs a bit longer, and we can see if the temperature maybe gets a little higher on that. But otherwise, like I say, unless you were gaming for a significant period of time, running something like whatever, like a firm arc test or something, you could really crank up the heat on it probably. But this is with the fans. What have I set the fans at? The fans are at about 78%. I set them manually. This is where I usually keep fans of most of my cards, is in the 70 to 80% range. Like, the noise is not an issue, and the temperatures stay where you'd want them. Let me just try cranking this thing up, see if I can hear it. I can hear it. Yeah, they're getting pretty noticeable. Just giving that a second, but alright. So they get, yep, gradually picking up. Alright, I'll put it back down to about where I had it. So they get pretty noticeable at 100%. I don't know if you guys can hear that through the mic over here, but noticeable at 100%. But about 80, I won't say they're silent, but you can hardly hear them. And if, with the case closed, then they're really quiet. So, alright, last test I'm going to do, like I say, I'm going to go do superposition, and then we'll probably call it good. So give me one sec. Alright, so this is a superposition on the 1080p, like just default settings, and we've got about just shy of 21,000 score, and we've got a average frame rate of 155, about 156 really. Minimum temperature on the GPU 35, maxed out at 63 degrees, so very, again, comparable to the other benchmarks we've been running. And this one runs a bit longer. It ran, I think that test is about 5 minutes or something like that, but it's all one test pretty much, where it isn't like stopping between tests and then allowing the GPU to cool down briefly before it heats up again. So it looks like, low to mid 60s on this card seems to be a pretty safe bet. But like I say, after an extended period, you might get close to 70, but not too bad. GPU was sitting around 99% the whole time again, so running pretty well, given, like I said, good temperatures, good results. I'll go ahead and do the 4K benchmark, and then I think we'll call it good. Give me one sec. Alright, there's the 4K optimized results, and actually that averaged almost 71 frames a second. So I mean, depending on the game, you could probably do some 4K gaming with this card, depending on what settings you want with it, etc. But doing a pretty good job. Maxed out at 86.53 frames a second. Again, the temperature hit 64 degrees. This is a bit more GPU bound, of course, than the 1080p version, which is more CPU bound, so it makes sense that the card would get a little bit more heat than it did on the previous test. But I think, honestly, like I say, just give it enough time, it'll probably hit closer to like high 60s anyway, if you really played on it for a while. But pretty good cooling. Like I say, the idle temps aren't amazing, but the max temperatures are quite good. So depending on the airflow of your case, like I have this in a Phanteks 719 case, which, if you watched the video where I did this build where I built the 11900K system, how big that case is. It's really large, has really excellent airflow, and I have a lot of fans in it. So it's a pretty good example of how well you can get good results if you have proper airflow in a case. But regardless, pretty pleased with the way this went. I hope my friend likes it. Like I say, it's one of my coworkers / friends that I helped get this card off of the Newegg Shuffle. I don't see anything that he's going to have a problem playing with it. It seems like it's really quite an effective card. So if anybody has any questions, I guess, please leave them in the comment section below. I tried to cover what I think people are usually interested in, like the lighting profiles, etc. Let you pretty much have, a good amount of I/O on the back of the card. Like I said, there's 3 DPs, 2 HDMI 2.1s. That's pretty nice to have that ability. Like I said, this is an HDMI 2.1 screen with 4K 120 Hz. You can maybe see how smooth the the mouse cursor is moving. But yeah, just nice functionality, nice I/O. Very, fairly large card though for the 3060 Ti. If you wanted a smaller card, like I know that, like the Founders Edition version
is quite a bit smaller than this. So, you know, just make sure you have a case that's large enough to fit it in, have good airflow, doesn't use too much power, which is kind of nice. Hitting around between 1900 to 1980 megahertz, depending on the test I ran it on. So, you know, pretty good ability to hit a high clock frequency and not get too hot. I guess, like I say, any other questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Hope you guys liked the video. Glad I was able to do another hardware review here, since I haven't been able to do one of those in a while. But comments, questions, concerns, ask in the comment section below. If you like the video, please consider giving a thumbs up and try subscribing to the channel if you really like the content, because I'm going to try to do more hardware stuff again going forward. I know I haven't been as much lately, but I got another, like I said, I'll be doing a build probably this next coming weekend. A different friend of mine, we, like I say, ordered a bunch of parts for him. It's going to be an AMD system within NVIDIA RTX 2070. So anyways, appreciate you guys watching. We'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.